Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 66th edition of the Frankenstein chat. And as you can see, there are three of us today, so we have a guest. Good morning, Simon.
Morning, Frank. Morning, Stan. Morning, everyone.
Yeah, and good morning, Stan. How are you today?
I'm good today. I'm feeling a bit left out as I'm not in a car.
I know. Well, I'm in North Wales, and Simon, where are you?
I'm in a car park in Huddersfield town centre, about to catch the train into Manchester for a meeting with the DFE, actually. So,
right.
We'll see where we get to.
Yeah, don't tell them you've just appeared on the Frankenstein chat. That might cloud the meeting a little bit. But anyway, I'm in a car because of that. Can't get a decent signal where I am, so the best signal's in the car. So that's the reason why I'm here. So, but anyway, it's great to have you. So, for those people who don't know who you are, Simon, do you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction?
Thanks, Frank. I'm Simon Parkinson. I work for the WEA, the Workers' Educational Association. I'm privileged to be chief exec and general secretary is the full title. So, and that's important because there's two parts of it. But yeah, been involved in education and sort of social justice movements for probably most of my career, really. So WEA, Co-op College before this, hence the connection with Frank and Stan. And then a long time with Royal Mencap Society supporting people with learning disabilities. So lifelong learning, social justice, education generally, I guess, I can bore people with that for a little while.
The thing about the WEA, I mean, a lot of people have probably heard of WEA, but are not quite clear about how far back it goes and what it was like. Can you give us a potted history of it?
Yeah, massively proud legacy, back over 120 years, and the clue's in the title. It was the Workers' Educational Association, still is, and still needed very much. And I guess, like lifelong learning itself, we have a bit of an issue in terms of describing what we do, because it's so diverse and geographically diverse and in terms of the curriculum, but it's everything from, yes, those employability and skills type programs, but right through to cultural learning and really just supporting people to go on that journey of opening their minds and learning something new. And we're proud of that diversity. And we think there's a space for all of it, increasingly a space for all of it.
Well, there's quite a lot been going on in this area, hasn't there, over the last couple of months? So I'm sure that's really, I think, an area I'd love to chat to you a little bit more during this discussion. So, Stan, what's caught your eye this week? Or if you want to have two, you can have two.
No, I'll not be greedy. I was going to talk about CO2 monitoring, but apart from monitoring the CO2, I'm not sure what else it does. and if you've only got one per school, where do you put it? And when it goes off, what do you do then? The advice is perhaps to do some lessons outside.
Yeah, in the windy October. I can imagine that going down really well.
And then what do you do at the end of the lesson? It's very poor advice, I think. It's advice from people who don't really know the practical situation of saying, why don't you do your assemblies on the playground? And then we'll all go back into the classroom we've just condemned beforehand. It's not rational. It's not reasonable. So that was one.
So you are going to have two. You are going to have two.
I will be greedy. I wasn't going to mention that one. No, the thing that really struck my eye was a little video clip of a former American soldier talking about how much equipment has been left behind, having been given to the Afghan army in Afghanistan, and it totals $28 billion. And I just can't get my head around. We spend $28 billion on armaments, which is what it is, and vehicles, but haven't invested that kind of money in people. I can't balance 28 billion in trying to control something as opposed to trying to change things. And it felt to me like if you want to put a school sign on it, yes, we gave every pupil in the school a mobile, but we didn't bother thinking about how we got them back, or whether we kept a record or who'd had one or whatever. It just felt as though as the guy said it, I mean, the guy was nearly in tears saying it, but it was so much money and so much investment. And obviously, the opposite side of it is, I think it's 600,000 small arms and weapons that we've given to an organisation now, effectively, who will use them.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
bizarre. Well, mine, I'll have two as well, if you don't mind. Mine was, I've decided that I'm going to install a shed at the side of our house at home, but I'm not going to call it a shed. According to the Department for Health, I can now call it a house. So I have now a new house next to my existing house, and I think I might actually put another shed at the bottom of the garden, and actually that'll be 3 houses all in one plot, because apparently the Department for Health have or the comms team have been instructing the trusts around the country that in order to meet the 48 new hospitals, then anything that is anything reasonably substantial or recommissioned is going to be called a new hospital. So anyway, I'm sure we can all adopt this. You know,
yeah, this is a way of solving the problem of if my wife asks for a new house.
Oh, absolutely, Stan. Just build a shed. I mean, you've already got the summer house, so you've got 2 houses already. You didn't realise it.
No, I didn't.
But the other thing, to be a little bit more positive, and is I was involved in a meeting with the Times Education Commission in Blackpool this week, and we had the chair of the Youth Parliament, a young man called Andrew, and the Youth Parliament in Blackpool, I was completely unaware of it, have an education manifesto, and actually they have a very clear strategy for examinations, in that basically they don't want to just have an examination that examines or assesses one element of a young person. They want a much broader view, because that's what employers want, and that I believe they believe, and I agree with them, that's what universities want as well, is a better understanding of the whole person, not just what they can do sitting in a sweaty hall in a summer month answering 2 hours of questions on history.
Or what they can remember for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I got through my exams. So I only have to remember 45 minutes worth of information, because that's how long I'll spend on any question.
So those are my 2. Simon, what's caught your eye this week?
Yeah, a couple of things then, if we're doing 2. That's a technical professional one, and it is Afghan related as well. So rightly and properly, we're about to offer sanctuary to thousands of Afghanistan refugees. They'll be welcomed into the country, I'm sure, and there is some wraparound support being offered by government, and that's fit and proper and right. But at the same time, there's been a technical funding rule that says family members arriving from other countries, so outside of Afghanistan, that may need ESOL support, so English for speakers of other languages, they've got to wait 3 years. They've got to be in residence in the UK for 3 years before they'll qualify for a free ESOL course. And it just feels really perverse to me that actually, surely it should be the other way around. That we should invest in people in the first 3 years that they arrive in the hope that they'll stay and integrate and be part of society. So I'm not sure whether we'll see another U-turn, on that, but I hope we do, because it just feels, feels like a little bit of bureaucracy that's gone wrong somewhere, I think.
Well, effectively, we're isolating people who come to their own community and then complaining that they're not integrating properly.
That's what it feels like to me. So, hopefully hopefully somebody will have a look at that. And then, on a lighter sort of note, I think we've finally remembered how to play Test cricket again after the last couple of days. So that's quite enjoyable. And I'm off to watch the next Test at Old Trafford next week. I think that's next week. So hopefully we'll see a similar performance. So those are the 2 things that have caught my eye.
I think the thing we've found is the batsmen other than Joe Root have remembered how to bat, haven't they?
Well, at least holding the bat the right way up, and which end they use for which, it seems to be clicking now. So
yeah. Oh dear. Okay, so Simon, I mean, there's been a lot going on in your area, in your field. I mean, you alluded to it a little bit earlier about the funding, which I'm completely unaware of, and I suspect many people watching this video are completely unaware of that. Do you want to give us a sort of like a little bit of a sort of the lowdown on on how turbulent it's been, you know, for the association in the last few months?
Yeah, no, happy to. For those that follow Twitter, you'll know that I've got notes to speak for about 4 hours on this, so I'll try and keep it succinct. I think the big issues and that we're dealing with and that are on our mind is that, you know, there's absolutely an increased political focus on adult skills, and actually that's to be welcomed generally. You know, that, you know, actually the government talking about skills and linking it to the levelling up agenda and building back better and COVID recovery, that, you know, it's difficult to criticize that and say that that's the wrong way to go. But actually what we're increasingly concerned about, and we can see, is that the focus on skills, you know, higher level skills in particular, as the bridge to employment, that's being commissioned and delivered at the expense of lifelong learning, community learning, that wider piece that I think we all know is important. I think we all know it has cognitive, societal, economical benefits, but actually it's getting squeezed out at the margins in the dash to get everybody a level 3 qualification. And that seems to be all we talk about when we talk about lifelong learning. We talk about levels, accreditation, you know, exams, qualifications, and we forget that at its core, this is a voluntary and self-motivated action. People thinking, I'm going to learn something new, I'm going to do it and make a positive difference, regardless of whether it improves my employability sort of prospects or not. And that's the dilemma that I think we're trying to wrestle with at the WEA, because we're greedy. We do want to do both, and we want to support people to do both, but one can't be at the expense of the other. And I think that's the big debate for us at the moment, is how do we create the space and the systems and the funding, you know, to allow people to be genuine lifelong learners and not stop at 25, you know, because they've got a level 3 qualification that's got them into a job. You know, that's the big issues for me, I think.
I think this relates this is a very important issue, as well as a theme around this desire to get to the level 3. And there are we've spoken over a number of weeks about the way the education system, the examination system, ensures that there will always be some children who can't get a level. You know, they can't get that level in an exam because of the way that, you know, they're rationed. You know, actually we need to have some children not getting there in order to sustain this sort of like grade security, shall we say. And so there's a lot of work going on at the moment, pressure being put on the government with regard to, well, what about those kids? You know, this is about, for whatever reason, you know, and often it's, you know, often the young people themselves seem to be the ones that get blamed for the fact that they're not at that level, as without, you know, and I feel as though that actually makes them feel as though they're clearly responsible, but actually a lot of the circumstances that they're working with, it makes it very difficult for them to achieve that level, even if the system was fairer towards them and that everybody could get that level or could reach a certain level, but actually they're not allowed to reach that level. And so I think that there's, you know, this also relates to schooling and all the way through. It's not, this is about the focus of the government seems to have been on the higher levels, you know, the T levels, you know, where you need actually reasonably good qualifications. You need to basically be able to get onto an A-level course in order to get onto the T level, and the rest will do apprenticeships. Well, there aren't the apprenticeships there.
No.
They've fallen through the floor. You know, so
That's
and my concern has always been with
these models were put in place when there was employability for anybody who didn't, you know. The rule was if you didn't get to university or you didn't go to college, you went straight into work, not you went into unemployment as is now, or you went into a sort of no man's land where there is no direct and career path for somebody who doesn't, for whatever reason, hit those grades.
Yeah, and I think the knock-on effects, I think you're absolutely right, Frank, about that. You know, that rationing of grades and you know, that means that, you know, at 16, you know, young people are leaving school with a sense of failure. which, and we know this, we all know this, and what that means is it heightens their reluctance to come back into anything called educational learning. So we end up picking the pieces up 20 years later, when somebody's actually rebuilt a level of confidence. They're going, okay, I can see and ready and confident enough to learn something else. And then increasingly we're gonna restrict what they can learn, or what we say is valuable for them to learn, by again rationing it down to a level and a technical qualification. So they're back to square one again. They had a poor experience of that at 16, and now they're being told, well, unless it's accredited, unless it's a proper course and a proper qualification, then there's no real value to it. And culturally, we've just got to change that. We've got to recognize that anybody that's willing to, be self-motivated enough to try and learn something new, whether that's playing the ukulele or, level 3 maths, it's all valuable. And there's got to be a societal response to that says, this is, in and of itself a good thing to do, because it'll have positive impacts for the individual, for the communities around them, and for us all generally, I believe. So that is the big challenge for us, I think, how we reinvigorate that desire to want to do this and say it's all right, whatever you want to do in terms of learning is good and valuable, and go for it. That's the challenge, I think.
I think we're not pitching stuff, we're not offering stuff to the generation above to make that link. It seems to me it used to be if I fancied learning Spanish because I go to Spain a bit, I could find a local college probably within 5 miles that would offer that course either free or a substantially reduced rate, that it would be a token payment, and I could go. And if we've not got a generation, so my generation and probably the one just below, who feel they can do that, then what chance of a 16-year-old who's not had a good time in education thinking it's the thing to do? It's something I can continue
and
with.
I think that's right, Stan. And I think that the other thing, and the pandemic and COVID has sort of heightened and sharpened this, is that that generation, well, any generation actually, it's not even an age thing, it's always been a bit intimidating to walk back through a college door, particularly the older you get. You don't want to be the oldest student in the classroom. You don't want to look, out of place. And so that's always been an issue. And that's why we've gone for community venues, and we work very, very locally. But actually, the massive change that the pandemic's heightened is that actually more and more of this now is self-directed. It's not even blended. It's all online. And actually, it's not online with recognized providers. It's on YouTube. It's on TikTok. It's, people self-curating all the evidence and knowledge that's out there and making it work for themselves. And I think that's a real challenge for providers like us, like the WEA. That's a massive sort of challenge for us. And I think it's a challenge for government and commissioners to say, actually, how are we going to do this? How are we going to recognize that people, are learning in massively different ways than they ever have now? And it's getting, less and less formal. So actually measuring it and funding it's going to be really, really tricky, I think, going forward. But there's got to be that recognition that, it's completely changed. It has absolutely massively, changed, even over a short period of time.
I mean, when I'm at home, I normally have a couple of guitars on the wall, and I still have a guitar lesson with a teacher every fortnight, and we record that lesson on Zoom because we can't meet face to face. So if I want to refresh, because I'm an awful student, I have to tell you, Chris, I know why I didn't do that well at school, but actually, and Chris, my teacher, knows that as well. But actually having the ability to record it and to play it back, actually means when I haven't been listening, I've actually got the lesson there. But I have to say that without the motivation of Chris being somewhere in here, rather, because there are loads of courses, loads of guitar tutorials on YouTube online. I don't, and I've looked at those, I've actually followed some, but they just don't have this, because Chris knows me. He's got the ability to pick me up when I'm feeling low. there's just the technical elements that he can pick out in my guitar playing. So, this, and also he motivates me because it's a friendship now, so, I would worry about going on to, relying on just sort of like online, impersonal types of training and relying on that as the main vehicle for encouraging some people who've actually struggled at school. That doesn't feel to me as if that's going to have the greatest impact. Maybe a place for it for some, but I would have thought for the majority, they would need somebody who can lift them, pick them up, have a laugh with, that sort of stuff as part of the experience of getting back into the flow of stuff.
I wouldn't say that's what schools are about. It's actually about relationships. And if you've not formed that relationship, some students have a really bad time at school simply because they can't form relationships, and it's easier to be poor behavior, get yourself excluded than actually deal with the fact that I don't form relationships. But I agree with you, Frank. I think online stuff is great as a supplement. It's great as a way to deal with things when there's no alternative, but there's nothing quite like having a relationship with somebody that lasts. And I think that's an element of education that probably the pandemic has highlighted in parents saying, yeah, but they're missing school, they're missing their friends.
Yeah.
Where at one point talking about friendships being important at school and relationship with teachers, that would have been written off. It's all about learning, and maybe the pandemic has done something positive for understanding that it's not just about pumping information into young people's heads. It's far more than that.
How's WEA then responded then, Simon, to this? How are you coping with this?
So exactly what you're describing, Frank. And so I need to sort of clarify it. So when I talk about that move and using the technology, it's exactly the example you've given. It's about, either one-to-one or communities of people still learning together. But the point I'm making is the technology platforms allow that now. So you don't, physically have to meet as often. I'm with you. I think there's great value in that. But actually, more and more of people's general relationships in life are online relationships. They're FaceTiming each other. This is where we're at. And that's what we've really tried to do and keep in the WEA. So we don't talk about it being we don't talk about return to classroom, because we think we've had online classes and online groups of people studying together. So there's still that person there, and we still call them tutors, but actually it's more, as you said, they're a guy by your side. They're not at the front of the class. They're not on the virtual chalkboard, or they're there to help, to guide, to almost curate the amount of information that's out there, because everybody can get to it. So it's helping shape what should you look at, what should we be talking about. So we've tried to keep it really interactive, and actually that's worked tremendously well for us. 36,000 students all studying online with us is phenomenal. We had that stereotypical generational hesitation at the beginning of COVID. I can't do it. I won't get online. Both from students and from tutors, it won't work. I'm an arts and crafts student. I can't possibly teach on Zoom. And actually, over 12 to 18 months, we've seen such phenomenal progress from tutors and students, to the extent where we're running our student survey at the moment. And just as you've said, they've said, yep, happy to go back to venue-based sort of teaching and learning, but actually don't switch off Canvas, which is our virtual learning environment, because I want to go back and be able to get to all the material and the recordings after the class, so that I can refresh myself. So we've seen, real change, I think, in that. And I have to say, some of the tutors out there, just phenomenal. I mean, working three cameras so that they can show that. The tutor that we won our award this year was an arts and craft tutor. She does online sewing classes, and actually the feedback she's had is because the way she set her cameras up, it's actually better than trying to sort of huddle around in a room and see how she's doing it. She's got the camera, virtually set up on the sewing machine, and just phenomenal. And the passion and the enthusiasm for it. And then, we recognize that. And she says, well, isn't that what everybody's doing? And we go, no, it really isn't what everybody's doing. This is, you've absolutely gone the extra mile. So yeah, it's just, I think we've just got to be aware that it's changing all the time, and harness the better parts of that. Yes, we still want that interaction, that, togetherness that, we know learning brings. But I think there's multiple ways we can do that now. And I think that's the challenge for us.
So just because we're nearly half an hour in,
Wow.
well, I know it just flies, isn't it? But the WEA has been challenged, though, isn't it, really, in terms of funding going forward? You're facing, I wouldn't say a crisis, but it is a significant moment in the life of the WEA.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's, as many of the viewers, and I know that both of you know that the adult education budget generally is being devolved. So where we get to mayoral authorities and where devolution's here to stay and will continue, then the adult education budget is being devolved down to mayoral authorities. So we've gone from an organisation that used to enjoy central grant funding, quite wide in what we could do with it, to now having to work in different ways across different mayoral authorities and being contracted as well as grant funded. So it adds layers and layers of complexity for us, which adds sort of administrative costs. But actually localizing decision making, I think I agree, is a good thing. So, I'm not, it's not an anti-devolution point. But what we're seeing is where we started this conversation, that there's a narrowing then. If we're not careful, MCAs look out, they go, right, actually, the only priority for adult education budget is skills and employability. Again, difficult to knock that, particularly in some of the, the areas that we work in. That is, the number one priority for many people is holding down a decent job. So I can't knock that, but it's coming at the expense of all the other stuff. So people are just commissioning skills-based employability programs, and we're struggling to make the case, and we'll keep doing it, to say, well, whoa, there's got to be a pathways to this. There's got to be a wider sense, because if we are going to build back better and level up, that's about investing in people, not just investing in infrastructure, not just employer-led skills courses. That it's something much deeper than that, and we've got to again encourage people through those first gates, over those first barriers, so that actually they start re-engaging again. And our fear is, particularly in what will be a tight comprehensive spending review, lots of money for the National Skills Fund, fine, but if that comes at the expense of community learning, lifelong learning, then that'll be a false economy, because it just won't work if you take away the rampway that people need to get there. So that's our big, we'll be doing an autumn campaign around that. So
is that why you're going to the DFE today, though, Simon?
Yes, in one word. Kirsty, sorry if you're listening to this. Yeah, we're going to try and make that case.
Yeah,
I think people understand it. I don't think the DFE is the problem. I think Treasury is the problem, and that's understandable. We know that the public purse is stretched, so I don't think it's an ideological or political thing. I think it's just a financial, and people really sort of going, oh well, it's got to be about skills, and not understanding the wider context, really.
Sure.
He says optimistically.
In those circumstances, Simon, that then becomes not a good economic policy. Because it sounds, we put all our money into this level, but actually, if we don't have a system that gets students and people to that level, or we don't have something that engages the wider community, that doesn't work. So that money then is wasted. And I think that when you say it's not ideological, I think there's an element of it that is, and it's about understanding the whole picture. I know you put on your blog, your Twitter account, the BBC report on RIL, and I found that really quite fascinating. That as some guy says, 2 streets away from this multi-million-pound fantastic thing, he's got his kids in a paddling pool in the road, basically.
Yeah.
And, you know, without that infrastructure, without understanding where the money's going, you tend to waste the money.
Yeah, and this is, you know, anybody involved in adult learning, community learning, will be banging the head listening to this, because there's been the issue for the last 10, 15 years, and actually, as a sector as well, we need to take some responsibility for this, because we need to invest some time and money and work together to make that economic case. So we make the moral case. You know, everybody can nod and go, oh yeah, we agree, you know, but actually, unless we can find a way of winning the economic argument as well, particularly like you say in tough economic times, then we're always going to get squeezed, you know. And that's the challenge, is coming together, not competing for students or separate pots of commissioned funding. It's how, as a sector, do we go, this is the difference we make, both economically and in terms of, you know, the society and building back and leveling up. And I know that, you know, people are, you know, David Hughes at AOC, Sue Pember at Holex, myself, others, you know, we're determined to try and do that. You know, we've got to speak with a common and loud voice to make sure that, you know, we're recognised when those funding decisions are made.
And on that point, I think it's probably I mean, we've got to 35 minutes, I think, there. So it's probably a good point to stop the video. But thank you, Simon, for joining us. Good luck today with your meeting at the DFE. I hope it's successful. As you say, it will probably open a door. Hopefully it'll open a door into the Treasury, which is probably where you need to get to. But yeah, so thank you. And if anybody's interested, Simon, you know, in this area of work, they just follow you on Twitter or just get onto the WEA website or whatever.
Yeah, WEA website's dead easy, wea.org.uk, just 3 letters. And there's massive telephone support on there as well, because we know not everybody's, you know, that digitally enabled yet. But, you know, yeah, look out for us. You know, we're here, there and everywhere, the WEA. There's something for everyone. So yeah, no, thanks Frank, thanks Dan, and thanks to everyone for listening.
It's lovely to see you and to see that passion hasn't been lost, Simon. So thank you very much.
You're
All
welcome.
right. So next week, I think it's just you and me again, Stan, next week. Then the week after, we have Fiona Miller on. So looking forward to that. And so I hope everybody has a good week, and we'll see you all being well next week. Bye-bye.
Right.